Welcome to Mastering Fundraising, a podcast for nonprofit leaders of all titles and all experience levels. Mastering fundraising endeavors to cover the most important fundraising topics with the goal of helping the audience reach their full potential as fundraisers. This podcast will share stories, tips, and guidance on the most important elements of fundraising. If you want to earn an advanced degree in fundraising, this is the podcast for you. Mastering Fundraising is a collaboration between Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership and the 5-Tool Fundraiser, two leaders in providing relevant and expert content to fundraisers and nonprofit leaders. Without further delay, let's jump into the current episode. Please join me in welcoming your host for today, Chris Looney.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Mastering Fundraising, the podcast dedicated to helping nonprofit leaders and fundraising professionals strengthen their organizations and advance their missions through the art and science of philanthropy. I'm your host, Chris Looney, and today I'm joined by Mary Hatton, one of the most respected voices in Catholic philanthropy. Mary has spent her career helping organizations build meaningful donor relationships, strengthen mission impact, and navigate the evolving philanthropic landscape. And recently, Mary facilitated a Catholic Foundation Roundtable that drew more than 120 participants and generated a thoughtful discussion around some of the most pressing questions facing nonprofit organizations and foundations today. And as we prepared for today's conversation, one theme kept rising to the surface, and that's collaboration. So in a sector where organizations often pursue support from the same donors and funders, how do we move beyond competition and embrace a more collaborative mindset? What are foundations looking for today? How is technology changing philanthropy? And what gives us hope about the future? So Mary joins us to explore those questions and more. Mary, welcome to Mastering Fundraising.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here today.
We're happy to have you with us and to help us sort of learn a little bit more about collaboration and to help us understand what the professionals in your group were sharing with you and sharing with each other, because I think it's instructive to helping those of us that are in sort of fierce competition for dollars and looking at some of the same donors on how to navigate things. But before we get started with that, I want the audience to know more about you. I'd love it if you could tell us a little bit about your journey into fundraising and philanthropy and maybe even what initially drew you into this work.
Thank you. Again, so happy to be here, and thank you for the very kind introduction. I come from a long line of family members that have been very involved in philanthropy all of my life and their life. And when I was a student at Loyola Marymount, it just seemed like I walked into an opportunity to dial for dollars to alumni and parents. And I think my dad knew someone there in University of Advancement and decided this is something that you should do. So I did, and I learned the old-fashioned way to just call people, and from there, I think I didn't even realize it, but I developed some kind of a wherewithal and a comfort to have conversations with people on the phone about themselves, and at the end got to know them, and I almost forgot, I'm supposed to invite them for a donation. So inevitably I just had fun on the phone with these people, so I was able to successfully raise some money as a student, and that led me into the kind of the organizations that I belonged to in school, a sorority and a service organization. And I found myself realizing that this was something that most people didn't love doing, but I did, because I loved the people part. So from there, I joined support groups and nonprofit groups right away out of college. I joined the Junior League. I joined the Juniors of Social Service Auxiliary. I just became very involved in supporting philanthropies that meant something to me, and here I am. So it's been a long and wonderful journey, and so
There you have it. But as you look back across that career, what were some of those pivotal leadership moments or experiences that kind of helped shape who you are today?
well, I would say for sure, my first official job fundraising was with Mayfield Senior School in Pasadena.
Sure.
And Angela Howell was my boss, and she was also a teacher of mine when I was a student there. She
Yeah.
quickly, she was the director of development. She was quickly became a mentor to me because we had to rebuild. We were kind of in the process of rebuilding the alumni office and trying to expand its reach to alums and et cetera. And boy, we were just in the trenches together, and that was very exciting for me. And because it was my school, I was all in. So that taught me right away that I will always only I will be a fundraiser for the organizations and efforts that I firmly believe in and have a sincere appreciation for the work that they do, because then for me it's not work, it's part of who I am. That
Hmm.
led me to the music center, which then led me to raising a family for a little while, but I stayed on with my nonprofit work. I never stopped doing nonprofit work, which is something I tell my daughter, and it's something I tell women often. Is one of the most gratifying things you can be as a mother. But keep your little toe in the door somewhere, in a pond somewhere, so that you're keeping yourself sharp. So I did that, and as the kids got older, I then found myself in further nonprofits. And so, as far as your question regarding moments, every person that has hired me has taught me something, and that has led to the next level of work that I've done. So I am truly grateful to all of those men and women who have hired me over the years. And I stay in touch with them, and they are very important to me to this day in the work that we do.
Hmm. Well, you've had the opportunity to work closely with donors, foundations, nonprofit executives, church leaders. What are the lessons about leadership that sort of have remained constant throughout your journey?
I feel some of the most important lessons I've learned, especially in this current job, working with a women's community of sisters, um, is listening. And I tend to be very excited about things. I get very involved. I want the best for it. I talk about it, and I have to. I have learned to really restrain myself in order to be a listener, whether it's the donor, whether it's a colleague, and I would say that that's a tool that leaders in my life have taught me, is the art of listening, because we we are good at that. We humans sometimes are having to remember to really, the best way to engage a donor is to just listen to them and
Hmm.
listen to their story, and that's what builds the relationship. So I would say listening is a key takeaway for me, um, as well as um, time and preparation. Um, for me, in order to do the work that we do in fundraising and be out in the world and be with people, I need a lot of time to prep for that, as a just quietly as a person. So I make it really an important part of my day and my week to make sure that I have really thought out, what is this? What am I facing this week? What's it going to require of me? Do I have too many things planned? And being thoughtful about a schedule.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what are the things that continue to inspire and motivate you these days, especially when it comes to serving mission-driven organizations?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. I mean, it's so personal. What continues to drive me? It's the work that the people are doing that I serve. Um, Whether it's the sisters that I work for now, who are in the trenches every day.
Hmm.
Um, these are women who they all have jobs. They are working with the most marginalized people in our neighborhoods, and they they aren't they aren't fundraising. They survive by the money that they make in their jobs and from the dollars that come in from those who support them. And that drives me because the work is it's so important to the lives that are saved and the lives that keep living because of the services they're providing to these women, children, families. So that inspires me. What else inspires me? Other people, other people that are doing the same thing we're doing. And
Yeah.
like, why do you do that? Why do you do what you do for the American Heart Association or the United Negro Fund or whatever it is that you do? Like, why do you stay and do this hard work? And that I learned from that. So I'm really inspired by others like myself who stay in the business. So,
Yeah, yeah. No, they are an inspiration. You all are an inspiration for sure. And one of the things I appreciate about your perspective is that it really sits at the intersection of philanthropy, of foundations, and leadership in the nonprofit space. You brought together 120 people for a foundation roundtable, and many of the themes that emerged from that discussion are relevant for fundraisers today. So I wanted to explore that. Um, but first, I wanted to know why you think so many people were so eager to be part of that conversation.
thank you. I will take every opportunity to shout to the mountaintops about the Catholic Advancement Roundtable, which was born over a cup of coffee with me and my friend Colleen. And I think the reason it is growing so quickly is because there's not just need for the people that we're serving, there's a need for us as fundraisers and colleagues to be able to share information, be honest with one another. Um, and listen, we're all going after the same dollars, and we are all trying to do the best we can to uplift the organizations for which we serve. So why not band together and be more collaborative about it than in competition, as you so are with articulation said in the beginning of this conversation. Sure enough, I think the reason this particular roundtable was especially successful was because we did pull together a very, very esteemed group of foundation leaders on a panel, and were they were very forthcoming and honest about how do you reach us? How do you tell your story so that we listen, so that we can respond to your grant ask? And I think people came out of the woodwork and are so anxious to continue being successful in supporting their nonprofits that gleaning anything from a foundation leader is going to be invaluable. So I think that's why it was so successful, and the five panelists were just stellar. And there was some silent moments in that room of 125 plus people because the conversations got heavy about, some foundations are invite only and some foundations are not. How do you break into a foundation that is an invitation only? How do you build an opportunity there? So the panelists were incredibly honest. And that was so important for so many of the people in the audience to hear. So I think there's such a dire need. The other reason, besides that, is that foundations today are being so bombarded by asks more now than ever because unfortunately of the climate that we are living in this nation at the moment is difficult, and so many nonprofit organizations have had a lot of federal funding um, snatched from them. So what do they do? How do they survive if they don't have the funding that they have counted on for so long? So first first thought is, besides our donors, is our foundations. So our foundations are really being stretched, and I see that in my own work. And it's 9 times out of 10, it's not because you didn't do your grant right or that they don't think you're worthy. It's that they are so stretched in this time in our existence here in the world. So that was very important for people to hear as well. So the needs are enormous. They won't stop being enormous.
Yeah, the needs increase, and unfortunately, the funding isn't sort of keeping pace with the increasing need. So I guess the question, and this is what you may have grappled with, is collaboration the solution to
Mm,
what we're dealing with right now?
yes,
Is that the theme? Tell me a little bit more about what you learned.
it has to be the theme because I, with 5 roundtables under our belt and subsequent meetings with foundations and donors that I know my other colleagues are meeting with too. Um, Listen, we're all trying our best to put our best feet forward so that we can secure the funding to meet the bottom line of our organization. And in that room last week, there were some key takeaways for the audience, and why shouldn't we be sharing that? Why should I not be helping to better the position of my colleague at another nonprofit with tips that I've learned, and vice versa? One being, if it's an invitation only foundation, don't let that keep you from trying to build a relationship with that foundation. In fact, the foundation leaders that were present that night said, send us a letter, build a relationship with us. Tell us what you're doing. Tell us your story. A, don't be afraid. Write them a letter, reach out. B, you have to tell a story. What's your story? Well, who are you saving every day? Who are the people that are benefiting from the efforts that you are putting forth every day? So there were some real, and it sounds easy and simple. Sounds like those sound so simple in some ways, but they're not, especially for a mom and pop shop nonprofit that has one person doing development, doesn't have a database, doesn't have an assistant, and they're trying to raise money and they're trying to do phone calls and write letters and all these things. So, it is a collaboration. It has to be a collaboration because that's what builds community, and that's what builds a better community, and that's what builds the church, at least in this particular case. Um,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah. Have you seen examples where this collaboration created outcomes that would not have happened if the organizations worked independently? Like, are you seeing collaboration win? And are there some examples that kind of pop to mind?
Yes. Well, firsthand, Homeboy Industries, talk about collaboration. That's an organization that collaborates with a multitude of other organizations in order to bring awareness to the work that they're doing. And for us, that's the name of the game. The Sisters of Social Service are 100 years old this year. Um, how is this 100-year-old community moving into the second century? Well, I'll tell you how they're moving into the second century. They're doing it with partnerships and collaborations. I was just working on our new brochure today with one of the sisters, and our partnerships are key to keeping going. Our community is shrinking, they're getting older, but they have energy and they want to keep moving forward. So therefore, they must invent and think outside the box other ways to keep their ministries thriving. Many of our ministries have are collaborating with other organizations to, like Camp Maria Stella, Regis House, which is a community center in downtown LA. They're now collaborating with other organizations in order to make camp possible for kids. Those two organizations have come together to make camp possible for all those kids in both of those organizations. It's a win-win. And as far as foundations, boy, the relationships that I have with the people at these foundations, they say, hey, you should get in touch with such and such at this nonprofit and work together on this. We would fund that. Bam. Okay, so now I'm off going to meet, this new person, because we have to build this project together because Foundation ABC is going to support it. And that just is fun. It's fun, and you're doing something positive. And we're not staying like tiny in our own little lane, in charge of just our own personal ministries. We're working with other organizations. Another example, the Sisters of Social Service have spearheaded a couple of new efforts, one being called St. Raphael's Center, the other LA Sisters Aging Well. These are collaborations with other religious women's organizations who are working together to help solve the problem of how do we take care of our aging religious. We have women in Los Angeles who are aging religious that don't have a place to go. They aren't lucky like the Sisters of Social Service with a retirement center where they can live till they go to heaven. So we've partnered with these other organizations and brought in the Hilton Foundation. We've brought in the Dan Murphy Foundation. We've brought in other funders, and together that collaboration has already made enormous strides to help bridge this huge need for women religious and aging women that are facing homelessness. So that's an example.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. And so I can see that foundations are interested in collaborations. I can see that foundations are wanting the right kind of stories and understanding the impact of an organization. But in your mind, how do some of these organizations even get on a foundation's radar so that they can begin building trust before that proposal is even submitted?
Well, in my case, I've often told fellow colleagues, call, you know, call this person at the Doheny Foundation. Call this they will guide you to who you could reach out to, or what's the protocol, what's the procedure. Again, going back to don't be afraid to reach out. I I did that with the Dan Murphy Foundation a couple of years ago. We had not reached out to them in quite a long time, and they have been an incredibly generous and committed funder of the sisters for decades. Um, and knowing that they were an invitation only organization, I just sent a letter and reminded them that um, Countess Bernadine Murphy was the first president of the Social Service Auxiliary, and you know, so our
Brilliant.
our collaboration, our relationship goes back to 1930, and we need the Dan Murphy Foundation. We need them. They help fund our vocation efforts, and that is a collaboration that is just bursting at the moment, and we are so excited about it. And we're actually talking about how can we bring in other religious communities to have a conversation with foundations like Dan Murphy. How do we fundraise for vocations? How do we do that together? Let's share the things that have worked for your community and ours. So um, I again, don't be afraid. Reach out, tell your story. What's the connection? There's got to be a connection. There's always a
Right.
connection. There's a
Isn't
connection
there?
between, yeah, there's a connection between a foundation and a nonprofit, arguably anytime. Maybe
Yeah.
not a person, but
Yeah. Well, you gave a great example of how a little bit of homework and research can help create a connection that actually means something, that actually will um, resurrect maybe a relationship that has been fallow for many years. So
yeah,
I love that. That got me really excited to hear that.
yeah.
What are
Well,
some of yeah, what are some of the more common mistakes or misconceptions you see fundraisers make when approaching foundations?
I think some of, I think one of the key things we fundraisers have to remember is things don't always happen overnight. This isn't an, you're not going to get in, you have to be patient with the building of the relationship. Um, I think too, another key takeaway from the roundtable where our panelists were very honest is pay attention to your application. Pay attention to a foundation's website. Know who they fund. Know who they fund. Know what efforts they fund. Some are women and children. Some don't do education. Some don't do salaries or fund staff. Understand where their interests lie. Because if you just throw some letter at them, assuming that there's a match, then you haven't done your homework. So that was a key takeaway that our panelists were very, very forward about is please go on our website, find out about us, find
Right.
out what we're about, find out the process. The Doheny Foundation, for example, they fund 4 different areas, and those 4 different areas have 4 different dates on the calendar. So if you're a religious organization, you have a particular date. If you're a school, you have a particular deadline. And they
Interesting.
only fund 4 different areas. So pay attention to that, pay attention to deadlines, and of course, follow the directions of the application and take your time with it. That could make or break $10,000, $20,000, who knows? So a well put together application was a key takeaway that the panelists kept driving home. Make sure all of your information is included, especially financials, which none of us
Mhm.
love doing, but your financials will tell a story too. So make sure you're on top of that as well.
That's great advice. It seems like AI is the only thing anyone can talk about these days. especially in fundraising and operations. Are there places where you see technology creating opportunities for organizations?
The good news for us in fundraising is AI is never going to take the place of you and me having a conversation. It's never going to take the place of me having an eye to eye, heart to heart conversation with a donor. That's the good news about fundraising. Can it be a tool? Of course it can. I use it myself, but I use it mostly for grammar reasons or for, does this sound right? Is this grammatically correct? Going back to the well put together application, make sure that you have dotted your I's and crossed your T's and all those good things. And AI is especially helpful, I think, when it comes to making sure that you are presenting the information correctly to the person who's going to be reading your application. AI also, listen, it's fun. You can ask it anything. Is this a good way to approach a donor? What would you say? It's crammed with great information. At the end of the day, it will never take the place of the human factor involved in face-to-face human fundraising and relationship building. I mean, AI is never gonna. I've known you, Chris, for how many years? I mean, AI isn't going to make you and I any better friends. You and I doing it,
Right.
making us better friends.
Might
So
make my background prettier,
I can
but
help you with
probably not
that.
going to make me any prettier, right? Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, no, that's good.
so I don't know
Well,
if that answers your question about AI,
of
but
course, yeah,
I think it's an
yeah.
ever evolving. I think it's like our iPhones. It's become a necessary evil, and it has an incredible uh, advantage for all of us in communication and in so many good ways. But of course, it has its drawbacks as well. So I think we're all very aware of it. We're all talking about it, and I think that's how we will eventually arrive at how can we instigate this tool in a positive way.
Yeah, yeah. But in your mind, it doesn't replace the authentic relationships or the need for human storytelling. They continue to be as important as ever.
I would go to my grave saying that.
Yeah.
I, the person to person is never going to go, is always going to trump the any kind of electronic relationship.
Hmm. Well, when you look at that next generation of philanthropy, it's easy to be discouraged because of the sort of reliance on technology and maybe the misunderstanding of the importance of personal relationships in fundraising. But are there things that give you hope when you think about the future of philanthropy?
I think yes, absolutely. I think there's never been a bigger world for philanthropy. I think we're seeing that in so many ways. One of the ways, um, let's be honest, a couple of things. One, the passing of generational wealth in the next 30 years is enormous, especially maybe the next 20 years. How are we managing that? Philanthropy is 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 ballooning because of technology. We have more and more new, not just millionaires, billionaires. Now we have a trillionaire. So as of this week. So um, how are we communicating with these people? Yes, I feel positive about the future. Philanthropists like us, we have to have a voice. We have to be out there encouraging a, a, a world of giving, a mindset of giving. It's such a wonderful thing to give. I mean, it's a physical feeling of how you feel after you have done something meaningful for something or someone. Um, I am encouraged by um, the fact that young people are going back to church. not just Catholic Church, they're going back, they're rediscovering spirituality in a way that, and this is a younger Gen Z kind of movement that I am seeing that we all are also talking about. What is that about? That means that generation is wanting to maybe unplug a little bit. So maybe the phones and the technology, yes, they are so important to our jobs and our everyday lives and our communication. But there's a hunger for, like, if you're just doing this all day, it it doesn't, again, it doesn't take the place of that human relationship. So yes, I have a lot of faith in the future because I think the last several years have been hard. And I see that there's a turnaround in people coming back to doing good things for the world. So,
Yeah. Do you have an answer as to how Catholic and mission-driven organizations can better engage emerging donors and future leaders?
our key tool is our voice. Our key tool is our voice and our ability to connect with people. We can sit behind a computer, we can write letters all day long, but nothing will take the place of picking up the phone and calling a donor, having lunch with someone, being out there. That for me uh, is is number one as far as moving into the future and trying to balance this need and for technology in a good way and not hiding behind it. So for young people, I think we just have to be examples to those that we work with who are coming behind us, our own children, our families, and be an example. I feel optimistic. I feel optimistic. I think the world of philanthropy has blossomed. It's a real job. It's a real hard job, and it's really rewarding.
Yeah, I do find that the number of people that ask me for an explanation of what I do, meaning I say I'm a fundraiser, and they used to say, I don't understand, what is that? And now
Yeah,
they say, oh, great. Yeah, there's a more of an understanding, right, of what that is, which is great. Well, I wanted to end with this important question, and it's this. If you could leave every fundraiser listening with one piece of advice about building stronger relationships and advancing mission, what would it be?
pick up the phone. Pick
Taking you
up the
back to
phone.
your early LMU days, right?
I'm taking you back to 1986. Pick up the phone. The phone is still it is the best tool you have. It is your main tool because your phone is what connects you to a live person. It's what helps you plan a meeting. It's what helps you get to that lunch or that coffee or that ability to then make that invitation. So
But when you say pick it up, you mean call someone first and foremost, and then use it to do all of these other helpful functions. But
pick up the phone, follow up with a nice note. I handwrite every single letter that.
I've been the recipient of a Mary Hatton written note, and it's very heartwarming.
Oh, thanks. Well, I believe in what I the people who support us. I'm grateful, and I mean truly, truly. It's a sacrifice for so many, but like I always say, fundraising is a ministry. It's not like you're not out begging somebody for their support. You're inviting them to be a part of your vision and your mission. So I still go back to pick up the phone because that's what gets you to the next step with that relationship. That is always going to get you farther than sending an email or writing a letter. Keep at it.
Yeah.
Don't get discouraged.
Yeah. Well, picking up the phone, making that call is the best advice. And
Sounds
encouraging
old.
people. No, no,
Sounds
no, no,
old.
no,
It's not tricky.
no.
It's not like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah. Again,
true.
sometimes the simplest things are the easiest to ignore and forget, and the things that we all need to be reminded of. And and for fundraising, it's probably not one call. There's no magic bullet. When we're talking about picking up the phone, don't just think, okay, I'm going to make one call today and that'll be enough. I mean, it's probably pick up the phone and call a dozen people or call 100 people and just see how that opens doors, because you're caring about them, investing in them. I mean, so that's advice. But I am particularly fond of the concept of fundraising as a ministry. I've lived my life with that philosophy. The idea that generosity is one of those God-given gifts, like public speaking or all of these hospitality, all these gifts that are distributed to people. There are some people that are gifted with generosity, and they're the people that are going to pick up the phone when you call, and they're going to have the conversation, and they're going to be inspired, and they're going to do something. So
Yeah.
anyway, Mary, this has been such an amazing conversation. And what I appreciated most is the reminder that philanthropy isn't a competition, it's a collective effort to create greater impact. It's the collaborations we're talking about, it's trust, it's a focus on the mission. And I certainly appreciated your perspective as a leader. Your career really demonstrates that fundraising at its best is not simply about getting resources. It's really about bringing people together around a shared vision and helping
Yeah.
organizations fulfill their highest calling. So thank you for your service and your leadership in the sector and sharing your insights with us. And wanted to thank our listeners too for joining us for another episode. And if this content was meaningful to you, I would encourage you to like and subscribe and share this with a colleague or a friend. We want you to help us to continue to elevate the profession of fundraising, our understanding of fundraising, our capacity to be helpful. So do help us to achieve that. And until next time, keep building those relationships, keep advancing your mission, keep picking up the phone, and keep mastering fundraising. So thanks all for being with us. See you soon.
Thank you for joining this episode of Mastering Fundraising. We hope the conversation was helpful and invite you to like and subscribe to this podcast for more conversations with extraordinary nonprofit and fundraising leaders. To learn more about Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership, please visit us on the web at fulcrumleader.com. To learn more about the 5-Tool Fundraiser, please visit us at 5toolfundraiser.com. We want to hear from you. Please share your thoughts and ideas with us at hello@fulcrumleader.com. Thank you for the important work you do to make our world stronger. We look forward to welcoming you back during a future podcast. In the meantime, take care and be well.